Hey, everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of Cinema A to B. Today, the movie on the agenda is The Rocketeer, the 1991 adventure film, Disney product, directed by Joe Johnston. So, Alec, I don't know, I was scouring through Disney Plus and saw that this was on the platform and was like, hey, I haven't watched that in a hot minute. Let's throw it on. And so I did. And then I let you know I'd watched it and you were like, hey, I'd be down to discuss. So why don't you kick off the conversation, man, on this kind of under the radar, kind of family friendly adventure movie from the early 90s.
So I love this movie. A lot of nostalgia. I've basically been watching this probably since 91. I don't remember if I went to the theater to see this, but I can definitely tell you we owned it on VHS and it was a regular watching for me. It was one of those that family, like you said, family friendly film that had a little bit of action, a little bit of gunplay that I was kind of allowed to watch. And obviously jetpacks are just freaking awesome. And so to have a movie about this and have it in 39, whenever this kind of takes place, you have a little bit of Hollywood also thrown in. This has everything for me. Like, this is a movie built for me. And also, just going to throw it on the table, it has Jennifer Connelly in it. And this movie made me fall in love with Jennifer Connelly. And she's fantastic. I mean, she's a great actor anyways, but also just was like, I love you and this. Yeah. And so I'm sorry. So Laura, if you're hearing this, I mean, she already knows, but this was the movie that did it for me. So, yeah. And I ended up seeing Labyrinth, I believe, after that, or maybe right before, but it was really, this was kind of that moment of seeing her in this, as playing Jenny, that I was just kind of like, but she's absolutely phenomenal in this. I mean, she is a great actor. I mean, obviously she's got a large body of work and a lot of different, large range of what she's played, villains to this, to, women in distress and all that kind of stuff. So this is great. So, and this is also my first true introduction of Alan Arkin as well. So was this movie, and he is absolutely brilliant. Just, my goodness. I've gone back and watched a lot of his stuff and he's absolutely hilarious. But Peavy is one of my favorite Alan Arkin characters that he's ever played. There's just something about how he plays this character, what he does with it is just amazing. And it's just I'm going to let you talk. I will, I promise. But
no, you're fine. You're fine.
But this is such a well put together film for a guy who started out his career blowing up things for Star Wars. I mean, he was part of ILM, and then he made his transition into movies. I think this is his second feature-length film that he did, maybe third. But this is early on in his career. And I mean, again, this is not a big blockbuster. It's a family-friendly little Disney film, but my goodness, it's well put together. It's well shot. It's got a great script. It's just well acted. I mean, it's so much fun to watch this now. So what are your thoughts, good sir?
Very similar. We did go to the theater and watch this, and it was a favorite. It's kind of got it all. The aviation component is extremely well done. Even before the jetpack comes into play, those high powered, for the time, race airplanes, really cool. The whole Art Deco thing from the late 30s, the style, the visual style, the architecture, right down to his helmet that Peavy makes out of like a radio case or something like that. So the art direction in the movie is just off the chain good. And then you get these funny mobster kind of characters that are almost pulled out of like Dick Tracy in a way, especially that Lothar, the guy, that folds guys in half. Like, the makeup, the prosthetics that are on that guy are very reminiscent of, and Dick Tracy's like within a year of this, or like, so there was definitely like this throwback. Hollywood was kind of like giving it a chance to make movies like about that had elements of like the 30s golden age
Mm-hmm.
of Hollywood, like late 30s. It's funny you talk about Alan Arkin as Peavy. I would actually say Billy Campbell that plays Cliff's got very good chemistry with Connolly as Jenny, but I would argue that he has better chemistry with Arkin as Peavy. Like there's this father-son,
mentor,
older brother
teacher,
dynamic that's a lot of fun, and they play off each other. There's still real natural interplay between one another. This movie is like has better actors in it than it probably should have. Like, and it's not because the script's bad. It's just the concept is like really not a concept that like would demand like really great performance. But it's got it. Like Campbell's really good as Cliff Secord. Like he's really good. Connolly, excellent. Arkin's great. Timothy Dalton, scene stealer as Neville Sinclair. And like I love him in the role. Just so damn good. Yeah. Like he's just so good. You got Paul Sorvino a year later getting typecast again as some officer a year after Goodfellas. I love Terry O'Quinn as Howard Hughes. He's not in it that much, but he's really good. Like there's like a lot of great character actors that like don't get a ton of screen time, but it like agreed to like show up. So it's real deep, like guys with like 5 minutes of screen time in the movie. And they're like really high caliber acting for a movie about a guy with a rocket pack.
Yep. And has to fight the Nazis.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Yeah. This feels like a kinship movie to like an Indiana Jones movie because of the Nazi villain. Well,
and Joe Johnson goes on to do Young Indiana Jones after this as well. So he pulls it off well. I mean, and he worked in visual effects on Raiders. And I think he did some of the others as well. So he got a lot of on set time and, working with kind of what's happening to kind of get that feel of how to do an Indiana Jones movie / get that feel out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Visual effects. Yep. A New Hope.
Empire.
Did some Battlestar Galactica, then Empire. Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was an art director. And then art director for Return of the Jedi. So and I have to say, for an early 90s picture, largely the visual effects in this have held up pretty well.
There's a couple compositing stuff that I saw that I was like, that looks like pretty not great composite work. But
it's interesting because when I saw this as a kid, I thought the fire coming out of the jetpack was like real. It's animated.
What?
Mostly animated. Yeah. Watch it again. It again. It might have a little bit of flame to it, but then it's enhanced with animation.
Interesting.
For sure.
Did not know that.
Yeah. But you're right. The compositing, there's a couple places where it falls apart, but there's some night stuff when he's flying around that still looks really, really good, especially as he gets smaller in the distance. I know they built like a little man, like a little rocket man is a lot of it flying around.
Well, like when the statue's flying up in the air, like that just looks legit the entire way. And then when it like lands, like even I know it's like that had to have been done some kind of ways. It just looks really good flying around. Like I feel like, they actually strapped a rocket to the back of the statue and just, hope for the best.
I just love the Zeppelin. The whole final act on the Zeppelins like feels. They shot it in a certain way where like you don't get full shots of the Zeppelin that often, but then the sets they built are so impressive. Like they built such large sets of the surface of the Zeppelin for him to like run on top of that it still feels big. Like as a set piece in an action sequence, it still feels pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fairly funny too. Like there's some good laughs here and there.
Yeah. I do think going back talking about the aviation, I do love how it makes flying still feel so novel. In the beginning, like just how both danger it is, how much people were still enthralled by how crazy it is that people were flying around in airplanes. And, I know we still have air shows, nowadays, but this was the height of where everything this was absolutely, you know, death-defying stunts and all those things where it hadn't become commonplace yet. And I kind of feel like the movie does a great job of kind of pushing that forward and allowing the audience member to see that and feel that, especially in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, because the time, I think it's 1938 that the movie's set in. So you're only talking about, 30 odd some years since the Wright brothers had flown at Kitty Hawk. And there's no jet aircraft. There are rockets, but they're very primitive. And so the time they set it in, the jetpack, the rocket pack, not only does it look really advanced, like it is technologically compared to everything else that exists in the era they've set the movie in. It's just head and shoulders. It might as well have been built by aliens, which Howard Hughes kind of was one anyway. So
in many ways,
like, I mean, a visionary, but bonkers. And so but I go back to the art direction. It helps that you've got like a VFX art director as your film's director. So you can tell the care placed on like costuming and the design of the rocket pack and the design obviously of his helmet, which is inspired from the graphic novel. A lot of that had already been, the look had been kind of established, but and then did you notice who is singing at the club?
No,
it's Jan from The Office.
Is it? It is?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, she showed up again. I was like, wait, who is that? And what is her? I'm gonna have to look up her name.
Oh, Melora Hardin. Yeah, you were right, sir.
Yeah, so she's in not a big role, but she's singing. She's actually singing and sounds great. Because the only other thing I'd seen her from prior to that was like she's in Iron Eagle.
Yeah. Hey, so aviation films are for her, man. That's her MO.
Yeah. No, but some of the lines are great. Like I love Sorvino as Eddie Valentine, and like Cliff outs Neville as a Nazi, and he's like, "What's it matter? I pay you well." He's like, "I may not make an honest living, but I'm still an American." Like,
yeah. Well, and apparently that's actually very true to history as well. Yeah. Is that a lot of the the mob and stuff were very, very anti-Nazi and very much like kind of saw eye to eye, with everybody else going, no, this is a bigger threat. Than our
you get that great scene where an FBI guy and a mafia are both shooting by each other at the Nazis, and they kind of pause and look at each other like,
what's going on?
And then they just go back to shooting Nazis.
Shooting Nazis. Oh,
I'm a sucker for movies with Nazi villains.
It makes it so much simpler. So easy. Sorvino does a great job of playing that character. I really just like him. He just effortless as kind of the mob boss guy that obviously he does so well. And just it doesn't feel like a caricature of like Goodfellas or something along those lines, but it definitely feels a little bit more tongue in cheek, but not enough to pull you away from believing he is a mob boss. But it's a lot of fun to see him kind of do all of that. I also really like John Polito as the kind of the owner of the airfield.
Yes.
Yeah, he just is that kind of slime ball that just does such an amazing job.
Did he show up in some Coen Brothers stuff?
Yes. So he has
Miller's Crossing. I knew it.
Yes.
I knew it. Yep. And he passed sadly in 2016. In fact, a lot of this cast have passed away.
Yeah.
From the Rocketeer. But yeah, highly recommend that movie, by the way.
Yes.
Miller's Crossing.
Yes. Yeah. I would also agree with that too. That statement. But just again, like you're talking about those local character actors who just kind of show up for a little bit and just do such a great job. Like he's perfect in this role as that kind of slime ball of like, the car blew it up, but you did something, so you have to pay for it.
Yeah, and that sequence where that older guy decides to fly the biplane
Mhm.
is really well done. And there's a lot of really dangerous, like real flying stunt work
Mhm.
in that sequence, as well as I don't understand. I want to know the rig that they built for the opening of the movie when Cliff is flying the race plane, because they must have built something in the back of another aircraft, because that's really Campbell in the air.
Mhm.
Now it's the shot's real tight, but that there's no blue screen or green screen compositing. Like that's him in an aircraft getting oil sprayed in his face and stuff. And it really just lends, it feels dangerous. Like even decades later, like watching that sequence, like, holy smokes. Like, yeah, he has to like punch, he punches out the canopy because it's just covered in oil.
Yeah. Then he's got to wipe his face and all that.
So yeah, it looks like they were doing quite a bit of real flying for those two sequences. Now, most of the rocket is a model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a model, which makes perfect sense. Like, yeah. But I think the compositing work, this movie's like 12 years later, so it makes sense. But I think a lot of the compositing work, like in this, still looks like a lot better than like the original like Superman movie, the Donner.
Yeah.
Which I like that movie, but a decade, you get past the backside of Star Wars, like they start getting better with some of the compositing work.
Well, and you're only two years before Jurassic Park, which really changes the game with some of that. So, I mean, this is probably the best it kind of can get with some of those old style of techniques that they had before. Then you start really getting into CGI and the breakthroughs that those start to add into.
But it's sad because I think I told you this when we were deciding whether we were going to like make this an episode, that it bums me out that like Disney doesn't make movies like this anymore. There's no money in it.
So you asked me that, you texted me that on Friday or Saturday or whatever. And so, which also prompted me to say, let's talk about this. So I really went through and I kind of, there's been a couple movies that I feel like kind of fit in semi. So I do think like the original Pirates kind of can fit into this kind of Disney adventure film. Obviously became so much more and changed, but if it was just like a one-off, the problem is I think, Disney has changed what they're trying to do. Like, I almost feel like this was less of, hey, let's make a bunch of money in the box office, more of, Disney Channel was kind of coming out. This is almost a straight to, TV or VHS kind of a movie. But you don't really have that anymore. And now you have some streaming stuff. But I'm thinking like Pirates of the Caribbean has that same kind of feel. The Jungle Cruise, I feel like was trying to capture some of that and just didn't do very well. I mean, obviously very different films than, different aspects of, in time frames and where they're at. But so you do have some of those. I mean, I think you had like the Lone Ranger when they did the Lone Ranger with Depp and Armie Hammer. It's
been a while though.
Yeah, but they don't do them that often now. And now they're just doing kind of remakes or sequels for the most part. That
now was the Mars one with the Civil War? Was that a Disney?
The Mars one with the Civil War?
Sorry, the guy in the Civil War that gets transported to Mars.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that a Disney vehicle as well?
That was and didn't do very well. It was John.
I lost a lot of...
oh my goodness. It's based off the book The Princes of Mars. Is
it like John Carter?
John Carter. Yes, John Carter.
Yeah, okay. So, but they lost a lot of money on that one, right?
They did, but it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, I personally really, really enjoy that.
So it got roasted and I watched it and I didn't love it, but I didn't understand like why it had gotten destroyed the way it did. So, and
I think for me, the biggest downfall is actually the main actor in that who plays John Carter. I just don't, Taylor
Kitsch or something.
Yeah, Kitsch. Yeah. He was kind of at that high point in his career. And so like, they were like, this is his vehicle of like, can he really, be the main guy? And it obviously didn't do very well. I think if you change him out a lot of that makes that movie better.
What you're saying is they still are occasionally, but they're picking their shots more.
Yes.
Because this is a Touchstone Pictures, and these kinds of movies would come out like
all the time,
pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at $35 million budget, worldwide gross of 46.7 million. So you're not on paper a break even, but so
it's not doing that well. And so I think it's changed. I think this feels a lot smaller than Pirates or Jungle Cruise or whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have all of the pizzazz and CGI that comes with these movies now, and I think they're also trying to recreate some of the success they had with Pirates, of where they're like, here's the one movie and it blew up, and then they got to, make 4 more and they all did well. I think that's what they were trying to do with, with Jungle Cruise, with Tomorrowland, though I did also like Tomorrowland a lot. And I know it got panned pretty well, but I think it definitely was a different storyline than Pirates, so it would be harder to make into kind of a larger world, but
right.
They're there. I just don't see it done with as much care and with as much, how do I want to put it? Like understanding what they're trying to do. Like I feel like the Rocketeer knows what it is and doesn't try to be more than what it is. Whereas some of these are.
I'll take it a step further and just tell you that, and maybe it's a limitation of the visual effects techniques, but this movie feels like handcrafted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that.
And a lot of movies today don't. Like, I know we just lost Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm. We did.
And he was known as like everything. Spielberg, I think, said everything he made felt like it was handmade. Mm-hmm. As much as a film can feel handmade, this feels very. It just has that craftsman's like touch to it,
mm-hmm.
and some movies still have that, but it feels like in the challenge of meeting production deadlines and profit is like the name of the game,
mm-hmm.
that a lot of that handcrafted element just kind of falls by the wayside, and you just end up with very clean looking movies that just kind of lack a soul, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like this movie's got a lot of soul, and I tend to give most of that credit to the cast. Like the characters feel, it's really easy for these characters. They could feel like one dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, the actors are like too good to let that happen. Like Timothy Dalton's Neville Sinclair could totally feel just like one dimensional. Like, I forget the British actor that he's basically supposed to be.
Oh,
he'd be the guy that basically played like Robin Hood.
Like Errol Flynn.
Flynn. Yeah. That's exactly who he is. Neville Sinclair is Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
And he could totally feel one dimensional in this movie, and he doesn't. Dalton just won't let it happen. Like he gives him nuance, and like you're like, oh, he is evil, but he's so like he's still so really charming and like. And this is an interesting time for him anyway. He's on the backside of like, there was a chance that he could play Bond again, but like it probably wasn't going to happen,
mm-hmm.
which I always thought was a bunch of crap. Like I always thought Dalton was really great as Bond, but he just wasn't really given good movies. So he's not my favorite or anything, but he got a bad hand.
Yeah.
Like he was dealt a really bad hand as from a script standpoint and direction and stuff. I think if you've read any even little excerpts of like the books, like Dalton comes across like more like Bond than probably anybody we've ever had. So he got a bad rap, but anyway, he's great. He's great in this role. Gives him nuance. It's kind of hard to hate his guts. Like you're like, oh, he's a Nazi, but like he's it's super funny.
You're like won over by his charm.
By the end, you're like ready for him to explode, and he does. But yeah, he's just
super selfish, very self-focused, as like an actor is.
Oh yeah, and he stabs like his co-star, and the guy's like even suspicious, like, do you think I was stealing the scene?
Yeah,
which he did, and then he was like, don't speak, just save your strength.
You go to my doctor. Or he shoots the other Nazi on the plane to make the blimp lighter.
We've got too much weight.
Yeah, he's like, just doesn't hesitate. No, I'm going to shoot this guy.
Yeah.
The only one that he has any loyalty to is Lothar, and only because Lothar does his bidding at a drop of a hat.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
That's, we should have a prequel and find out that relationship, what goes on there. Should be 10-part miniseries episode. Every episode should be an hour long. 10 hours into the
Disney's Lothar. The Adventures of Lothar.
No, The Adventures of Neville and Lothar.
Neville and Lothar.
It's like a buddy comedy, but then they turn into Nazis. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah, you're right, because at one point, Neville Sinclair would have been just a regular British actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, he's convinced to become a fascist spy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
Hey, you got Hollywood, you can have that one. You can take that one. Just give me a little credit.
Who do you have play him? Hiddleston or something like that?
Probably. I mean, Hiddleston is fantastic and would be a great young Neville. Because he can do that same I'm evil, but very charming. I mean, heck, he won over a generation full of people playing Loki, the bad guy in multiple movies. And they're like, well, outside of the Thor guy, I'd pick Loki, even though he wants to destroy the world and make everyone bend the knee. I'd bend the knee to Loki. So, man. But this movie's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. Laura really likes it too, though she, when we did watch it, she was like, at one point, she was like, I've seen this movie way too many times. I've gone through the good parts and the third act for her is fun, but not as fun as some of the other things.
It's not.
Yeah.
They've taken it to that point and it's gotta resolve. But I will agree. I felt like it ran out of steam a little bit. Mm-hmm. Even though the set pieces are big and stuff at the end and it was cool seeing the Griffith Observatory, which is like the most overused. What's funny is you don't know it's overused as a landmark until you live out there and you're like, wait, this is it showing up in like every movie ever.
Yep.
And it's cool. Like, if you're ever out there, you should totally go. It's worth it. But
it is. It's pretty easy to do my engagement photos there too. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I got a great shot of us at night overlooking downtown LA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good place to get that kind of view for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun. Like you said, it works within its kind of constraints as far as knowing what it is. And it's a balanced film as far as some drama, some romance, some comedy, good action. The action, I was kind of impressed again with some of the action sequences. Like I love watching him like fly around inside the club, and then they finally bring him down. But nice, awesome, big set pieces, total throwback movie. Yeah. Not just from the era it's set in the 30s, but just the style of movie it is it's, and I would say this feels more like an 80s movie than it does 90s.
I feel like it's a cusp movie. Like in a lot of ways, it feels very much like a late 80s movie, but then there's some aspects to it that makes me feel like kind of, definitely early 90s, but kind of bridges that gap. But but we didn't talk about this, but there is a fantastic, I don't know if it's a callback to the right stuff, but I'm pretty sure it is, with the Beeman's gum being such a big thing.
I think I just think Beeman's was popular amongst aviators. I don't know the connection. But I noticed that when he flipped it down, I was like, oh, yeah.
I mean, it could be, but
what's that? I'm just thinking about some of the funny lines, like when their house gets shot up and Cliff's like, we got to get back to the house. It's like, we don't have a house anymore, Cliff. We got a pergola made out of Swiss cheese. Yeah. Peavy's lines are so good.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and especially like also at the end when he's already sworn, like we need to turn this thing in and not do anything. And then he gets the plans, and he just like starts talking to Cliff, and Cliff's, kissing Jennifer, and he just goes, well, let me talk to this guy over here. You know, if I move the manifold and do X, Y, and Z. And
well, I noticed watching it when he realizes it's been shot, like it's got a ricochet and it's got a hole in it, and it's leaking fuel. Like, he must have not cared about Cliff that much, because to have the faith to just stick a piece of chewed Beeman's over the hole and be like, all right, buddy, good luck.
Well, at this point, he's drawn up his own plans, and he can just make another one. And Cliffs are a dime a dozen, so they're all over the place. Hotshot pilots.
Hotshot pilots. This is the best pilot you ever saw.
You're looking at him. Oh.
All right.
Anyways, yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good fun one. Good
if
fun
you haven't
movie.
seen it, highly recommend as a fun movie that the whole family can watch and enjoy.
Well, and Laura was totally engaged when I threw this on.
Okay. So what did she give it?
I didn't ask. I don't ask anymore, because
it's just meh.
My thing is just watching how engaged she'll be with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't take her eyes off the screen.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but I didn't ask her, like, because she would have been like, meh.
Mm-hmm.
But super engaged. But she did ask me, we started it up. She's like, why are you only watching movies lately that are like aviation, like airplanes and stuff? Because it was like this, The Right Stuff. Like, there's been several, and she's picked up on it. She's bright kid. And I was just like, because it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, cinema and aviation are like a match made in heaven. Like, Tom Cruise knows this.
Yep. That's why Top Gun is.
Howard Hughes knew it, trying to make that massive disaster of a over budget bloated mess that he made with over the course of like 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is another one. Yeah. It's like fun aviation themed movie, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. Same. Well,
but yeah, she liked it. She liked it. Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Well, with that, we're just going to say thank you to all our listeners for giving us another shot this week and letting us talk The Rocketeer. Hopefully you've seen it, you've enjoyed it. If not, as we always say, go out and watch it. We will see you next week with another episode of Cinema A to B. And until then, watch more movies or TV shows, talk amongst your friends, have great discussions about this art that we love. See you next week.